point. Not bad, not bad. That right there will definitely get the job done. Get hafted on an arrow and use shortly. It's got my pine pitch full right where I want to drop this arrow point. I'll glue it on in there. This is my first real step in connecting arrow point to the shaft. This will hold that arrow point in place in its kind of first fitting, if you will. I glue them and then I wrap them with sinew. You can just use glue, and many of my arrow points just have glue. For this, the intended targets would be some hogs, so I'm looking to really have a strong point made out of that jasper, held in place by my pine pitch glue, and then reinforced with a form of sinew. Now, I get that question all the time. What is sinew? How do you get it? How do you process it? There's a lot of kind of uncertainties, and some of it's my own fault because I've done a couple YouTube shorts in the past where I find some deer legs out in the bush, pull the sinew out, and people are asking, well, what's the point? What is it for? Do you just find deer legs at random in the bush? In all honesty, I don't typically find them. My dog Finn finds them. Why? Because it's typically something hunters will cut off, throw into the woods, and they don't really focus on that lower leg. And I'm always happy when he brings one to me because I can pull the sinew out and use it at a later date. More importantly, he's got something to chew on. Sinew is essentially a tendon and allows those muscles to move in conjunction with the bone. All living creatures have a form of sinew on them, whether it's a bird, a deer, a reptile. It is that relationship between bone and muscle and the movement of that particular critter. Now, obviously, the bigger the animal, the larger quantity of sinew, especially leg tendon sinew, but there are other types of sinew. This right here is called silver skin, or your backstrap sinew. This is also another type of sinew that lays across that backstrap of a large animal, something like a deer, a bison, a moose, and it's really sought after because you can use it the same way you would a leg tendon. You can separate it, pull it apart, wrap up an arrowhead, make cordage out of it, sew different sort of animal hides and skins together. It is essentially your natural thread. The sinew itself, it kind of acts like a glue, and I've never done this before, but I have read in different books and different articles that sinew can be used as a form of medicine. I don't know how, I'm not really sure the specifics of it, but it's just something I read. Elk leg, mule deer leg, whitetail leg. We can see the difference obviously in the sizes of these, but where that leg tendon sinew that I like to target is really, if you kind of think of the tendon as your Achilles tendon. It's that tendon that allows this hoof and move at its ankle all the way up into its upper leg. This will be universal on all these three different legs. There's no meat on here. That's why I just have these legs. Nothing's gonna rot, but I have that leg tendon sinew that's connecting all the way down into this hoof. It's kind of in a preserved state. We'll cut open this elk. Now, unlike our silver skin or a backstrap sinew, I'm looking to extract this sort of leg tendon right here. This is from a mule deer, this is from a little whitetail. This is the sinew that I want from this leg. How I'm gonna go about it is actually cutting into the leg, extracting the sinew, letting it dry, and then pounding it between two rocks to get down to the individual fibers. Oh, look at that. And there's a bearing block. That little divot right there is perfect for a bow drill. This goes in the hand, spindle sits in your divot, and you've got a bearing block. Score. You never want to cut on your tendon side. You run the risk of slicing into that actual leg tendon and kind of shortening all those individual fibers that are nestled together in that little tendon bundle. I'm gonna flip it over and run a slice all the way down to the elk's ankle. Let's use a couple of these. And with one slice, we are open for business. What you're cutting against is the actual front side of that leg, it's bone. That's where your target is. You don't want to cut the actual sinew side. When you have a fresh leg, this is about a 2 to 3 minute job per leg. When they're a little bit older and they've been sitting there for a while, you're gonna have to play around with it a little bit. But today's kind of a sinew processing day, I guess you could say. On the front side of this leg, you have a little piece of sinew that helps move this hoof forward, but this back one, you can actually start to see it right from here all the way down. This is that big chunk of sinew that you're looking to extract. This will work on the top. You cut it out, use it, but that right there is the money, is that tendon gold. So with your knife or flake, you're just coming along the side of the bone, and you're almost using the bone as your guide to cut, because you want to avoid really getting into the sinew. You can see it moving. That's where it's soft. So I'm looking to go right up into here to these little dew claws and then ride and cut all the way up to the top. Little pressure flaker. Jam my pressure flaker in there, and I'll use it. You can see that sinew starting to separate from the leg. I might have to loosen a little bit of this kind of dried fascia on the outside, and I just keep popping. You can use a stick. This tendon popping out is this tendon right here. There we go, just like that. This joint connects, eventually it's gonna give way, and then you just gotta cut it out of this back area. Almost there. That is a good piece. Once I've got that good separation from the top, I'm coming down to the bottom. Again, going back to the blade and just looking to separate any of that fascia that's kind of holding things in place. All of this right here. Just kind of slice it, cut it away. You know, at this point you can clearly see where that tendon is. You want to avoid cutting into this. So just take your time as you work your way down to these little dew claws right here, or knuckles, whatever you want to call them. You're cutting against bone, you're kind of using that as your guide. You can't go wrong. There you go. Separate it. This joint right here is the same joint that I use for my aws. This is obviously from an elk. This is from a little whitetail. These make great sewing aws. This makes great bone handles. There we go. Oh yeah. There's my bone, and there's that little bit of front sinew. Cut that out. Good. When I look at this piece of sinew, you can see it kind of mirroring this guy. This right here is that fork that rolls underneath that ankle, and you can start to see that fork right here that would have rolled all the way up into essentially the elk's knee. So with a lot more cutting and slowly removing away the hide, those little dew claws, getting around this ankle, you can see that fork and that sinew taking place, the same as this guy right here. It's just a slow process, steady removal. You can see that fork just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It's going to connect all the way down to the hooves. So at a certain point you can cut right behind these hooves, help loosen it, or just keep removing the hide and all the fascia and different membranes to get down in there. There we go. One piece elk leg tendon, and when it dries it will turn into this amber color, and then I can pound it and use it as individual strands for any number of tasks. So I'm going to let these two dry completely. They are pretty much dry, about 90% there. Give yourself a good 24 hours. This thing will be rock hard just like this guy right here. And I'll show you how we pound this. First, you need an anvil stone. The stone that's going to sit on the bottom, you're going to lay the sinew on top of. You don't want to use any sort of sharp angle on rock. One of my hammer stones has some chips. I'm just going to use one of the flat sides. I lay my sinew on there, and I just start tapping. What you're going to find is you want to start at the end and work your way all the way down. It doesn't matter which end you start. You're just giving it a couple taps, rotating. And what you'll find on your sinew is that there's a little bit of a coating or a sheath or a membrane. Now in that membrane you will have some fibers, but most of it will kind of break up. You can see right here as I separate that piece, I've got a little bit of sinew in there, so I'm not going to remove it. I'm just going to go down the entire leg tendon, pounding it until it's all open like a paintbrush. I'm wanting to rotate. I'm wanting to hit every different angle that I can. Every little knot. And that membrane kind of starts to just slowly kind of fall off. Kind of comes apart like a little bit of a shredded paper. I'm starting to loosen all of the fibers that make up the sinew. You will kind of be able to separate it into big pieces. That's fine. If it's long and it's together just like this, requires a little bit more pounding. Go back to my end that I started at. I'm not killing it with the stone. I'm just tapping to kind of loosen. You'll start to see as you pound this, the individual fibers and strands that exist in that sinew. That's what you're looking to get to. You're looking to get to this point right here the whole way down this piece. Now, as I've worked down, I can start to see this really kind of open up. What you can do with the stick or really your teeth, I kind of just like to poke a hole and just see how fiber this really is, kind of give myself a little bit of an opening. This opening is key because when you're tearing sinew, you never tear it like it's a piece of string cheese. You're never pulling from one spot at the top and trying to rip it all the way down. You always want to start in the middle and separate it. Go back to the middle again and separate it. You're doing this until you get the kind of individual strands that you're looking for. So as I've gotten to this piece right here, it's a little bit thinner, kind of going to that middle, and I can just keep taking this, separating it down to that desired diameter. But these are kind of my working strands. Something like this right here is enough to half this arrow. So I've got my arrow point glued into my arrow shaft. Now I'm going to use my sinew. How you use this is pretty simple. There's a lot of different ways. If I'm out in the bush, I will take my sinew, one small little piece, and I'll put it in my mouth. And I'm looking to slowly kind of rehydrate it. I'm not looking to really chew it up like I'm looking to masticate it to eat it. I'm looking to just gently nibble on it, and I'll start to feel it feel a little bit tacky. Now, you're not gonna get sick from it. It's tendon, there's no meat, there's no fat, there's nothing on there. You're not gonna get sick. Again, you slowly just kind of chew it up gently and then pull it out of your mouth. And what you should be able to find is that that one strand of sinew becomes this wet piece of kind of wet noodle. This right here allows me to take that sinew and wrap it around my arrow point. Now the sinew, when wet, is gonna have a natural glue to it, and that's activated by your saliva. And when it dries, it's actually gonna shrink down and become tighter. So not only are you getting the added benefit of a natural cordage, getting the benefit of a glue and kind of a shrinking property that's gonna hold this arrow point in place even tighter than that glue. Pulling a piece off from the middle, pop it in your mouth. You can't put 1, 2, maybe even 3 in there. I just go 1 for 1 because I've swallowed too many pieces, and then I can't remember, did I have 3 in my mouth, but I'm only spitting out 2. That's a problem. So again, kind of gently chewing it between the teeth, letting my saliva kind of naturally activate the glues in the tendon, pulling it out in this little spitball-like sort of wad, straightening it out. And then whatever way I wrapped my sinew the first time, I'm gonna go the opposite way. So if I went clockwise, then I'll go counterclockwise. Sinew's on there. It's gonna be kind of this white color when it's wet. One thing I'll do just to make sure it's all nice and hydrated and wet and that glue is really gonna activate, just kind of touch it with my tongue, make sure it's nice and smooth, and then I will sit and wait for this to dry. When it dries, it will turn this amber color. That's how you know that your arrow point, your atlatl dart point, your fletchings, whatever, is at that point where it's 100% dry. But now my arrow point is snug as a bug on this arrow. So when everything is said and done, you can already see that sinew piece that I did pull out is already starting to really dry out, and it's getting nice and hard. The natural tendons in an animal's body can serve as all sorts of different cordages. Some of the best bowstrings I've ever made have been from sinew and also the intestines of an animal. But when it comes to hafting arrow points or wrapping fletchings or making quick kind of adjustments to some sort of kit and you need some sewing material, sinew is a great option. Next time you're out hunting or you're out on a hike, your dog brings you a little treat, or you finally grab that 10-pointer, don't throw these legs out. Use that sinew for any number of tasks and really use that entire animal to its fullest capacity. Again, that is sinew. Don't overlook it. Make sure you resource it. And hope you enjoyed. Appreciate you watching.